Easy now. Papa got things making headlines.
Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. I'ma have to cut you off, like right now. You see, I don't want to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they ain't finished change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip. Yeah, you
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by The Athletic. Shout out to the company. My name is Michael-Shawn Dugar. You guys know where to follow me on whatever that app is that Elon Musk is running these days. At Mike Dugar is the name, Mikedugar. Shout out to everybody that's watching us right now on YouTube and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Seahawks Man-to-Man, that's man, the number 2 man is the name of our channel on YouTube. We appreciate all of the love and support, whether it's on our post-game show, which is what this is, or it is on our special Standout Plays of the Week episode that is a YouTube exclusive. Thank you so much. Chris, go ahead, holla at him.
Yes, echoing those sentiments. We appreciate all the love and support. You can follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that's CKid206.
All right. As I mentioned, it's our post-game episode. The Seahawks pulled it out at home in Week 10 over the Washington Commanders, 29-26, game-winning kick by Jason Myers as time expired. Great down-to-the-wire game, classic Seahawks stuff where, you know, every fan has a heart attack until it's 000. Great stuff. As always, we're going to do our Twitter question segment at the end. We got a ton, as we usually do, because you guys are the best. Thank you so much. Before we get into that, though, Chris, I want to talk about something that was really interesting after the game today. Obviously, Geno Smith played really well. He led he basically led a go-ahead drive and then led the game-winning drive. He was 9 of 10 for 100 yards. I took out the spike in that, so he's 9 of 10, even though it's technically 11 passes. But 9 of 10 for 100 yards, and a touchdown to Tyler Lockett on the final 2 drives. Damn near perfect. It was a great game. It's a big deal because Geno hadn't played well. Yeah, I think we can agree. He probably hadn't played well since week 3. You know, it's been a while.
Long time.
Yeah. And that was a long time ago. It was week 10, right? So it's been a while since the quarterback has played what we would define as playing well. And yeah, he was money when it was time. He was money when it was time against the Browns too, to be fair. But we're talking about for like at least an extended period of time. It had been a while since he had played up to his standard. And of course, after the game, you know, I'm talking to guys on and off the record. And what stood out to me after the game was not just the sentiment of, yeah, we're confident in Geno, we love Geno. You know, he can go down there and win us games. We've seen it. I mean, that was important too, because this was his 3rd game-winning drive of the year. Not since he's been the starter of the year. Remember, Chris, how long it took for him to get one of those last year? I think it was like whatever they played the Rams down there, week 13, 14. It was after like Thanksgiving. You know, now we haven't even hit Thanksgiving. He's already got 3 of them. But beyond that stuff, what stood out was guys almost unprompted saying that it's not just that Geno played well today. It's that we all finally did our part around him. Like I remember Jackson Smith and Jigba bringing that up, which I thought was interesting from a rookie. He was like, yeah, we're very confident in Geno whenever we're on the field in those situations, those being clutch situations. He's like, well, we're always confident in Geno. But he was like, honestly, we just need to do better for him. We have to do better around him. He was like, today we did better. And he's like, I think we still can do even better. But I asked him, I was like, oh, do you think that was the difference? He was like, yeah, that was part of it. It's like, well, us playing better around him. And Pete Carroll said something similar-ish. I mean, he's been saying it for a while now. But he said something similar after the game. A couple other guys had mentioned to me, it's like, yo, G's getting a lot of the attention, but it ain't just G. We can play better around him. And when we do that, it gets everybody involved. We go down there and the offense looks how it's supposed to look, like it did in the second half of that game today, where they scored, 9-9 at half. So it put a dub on them in the second half. It was very interesting to hear guys say that, again, largely unprompted, because there's, Chris, as you know, there is a gap between, usually it's with Jamal, but now it feels like it's with Geno, a gap between how guys in the building feel about a player versus how fans, some media feel about said player. Like guys in the building love Jamal, social media fans, some local media here just don't like Jamal. Think he stinks and all this other stuff. And then the last few weeks, you get, the kind of Geno's washed, or the clock done struck 12 on him. They should draft a quarterback kind of crowd, bench Geno. I mean, Drew Lock was trending at halftime. I didn't realize you had tweeted that at halftime. But yeah, he was trending at halftime on whatever that app is that Elon Musk is running now. He was trending at halftime. Last week on Pete's weekly radio show, the host basically in a roundabout way asked, "Hey, are you considering playing Drew Lock?" It's not how he asked it, but that was essentially the gist of the question. And I just thought that was absurd to even broach as a topic in that setting. But it was useful because it spoke to the sentiment locally. It's like, it's not just Geno's the guy. It's, whoa, is Geno the guy? Maybe Drew Lock is the guy. And I thought it was very interesting to hear people today be like, yo, Geno played great. Love Geno. That's what we expect of him. We see it every day. And we did our part today too, as a unit, because it ain't just Geno. It's offense, it's protection, it's the receivers, it's defense, it's special teams. Jason Myers, 5 of 5 today. Shout out to him. Future special teams player of the week. But yeah, Chris, I thought that was very interesting, very telling. And cool to hear guys kind of having their quarterbacks back. Again, they've actually done that throughout this kind of funk that the offense has been in. I mean, Jason Peters saying he has to be better. Jake Bobo admitting he did the wrong thing on the pick in Arizona. Geno admitting that, or excuse me, DK admitting he broke his route off against the Bengals that led to an interception. Tyler not hearing the call and running the wrong route on the interception against the Ravens. Like, guys have been kind of trying to tell us, yo, it ain't just 7 that's out there messing up. Yeah, he's messed up here and there, but like they've all been trying to like share that burden. And then today it was just like, it was almost like it was like a consensus, like, yo, let's make very clear that we all did our part today, which is why then Geno did his part today. So, because I thought that was very, very interesting to hear, very cool. And the on-field product backed it up. When you watch those 2 game-winning drives, essentially 2 game-winning drives, it wasn't just Geno. It was guys protecting him. I don't think he was pressured on any of those 10 dropbacks. That's crazy. On the final 2 drives, guys were open. Protection was there. Guys caught the ball. They ran all the right routes. What do you know? They go down there and win the game. It stood out when I was walking up from the press box, going back to my laptop. I was like, yo, I was going through all my notes. I was like, it was a statement made here today. And that was cool to hear from the guys, that they had their back. They even mentioned, like, yo, that's part of what Geno makes him great. I think this was DK saying, yo, the part of what Geno is great about is that he don't hear none of that. He don't hear none of that. Drew Lock, bench him, draft a quarterback. Geno stinks. He don't hear none of that. He knows who he is. He goes out there. He knows that we have his back. I thought that was a very notable quote from DK as well. He says he knows in this locker room, guys have his back. So shout out to those guys for that, because that is important, because they ain't going to Drew no time soon, nor should they. And Chris, today is why. There you go. They know when they all execute, the offense looks fine.
And didn't Ken Walker have some choice words? You talked to him after the game, and he mentioned the importance of Geno. Do you remember what he said to you?
I do, yeah. Ken, who, little behind the scenes little nugget about Ken, which I love. Ken is not a big fan of doing the post game pressers up on the podium or whatever. So he never really likes doing those. So if you guys notice, if you watch him on YouTube or whatever, everyone else is usually dressed when they do theirs. Like, they wait, they shower, they get on their phone. Ken, when he has to do it, he's like, yo, all right, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it right now. Like, ain't no way I'm about to do this so I can get out of here. And his are usually like a minute, 2 minutes tops. So like Ken did his in his full uniform, pads and everything, which I think is funny, because he wants to do it so fast. He goes before Pete. Usually Pete's first, then the players. Ken goes so fast, Pete hasn't even gone yet. Anyway, yeah, I asked Ken, how much faith do you have in Geno in those situations? And he said a few things, but like the end of his quote, he said, in those situations, I'm glad we got Geno. He said we got a lot of faith in him. We trust him. I see it day in and day out. And in those situations, I'm glad we got Geno. And I loved that because that's how a lot of guys in those fields, particularly some of these young guys who, for some of these young guys, this was like Geno's 5th game-winning drive.
Yeah.
That's kind of a lot, to someone like Ken, a clutch Geno is kind of all he knows, So I love that quote from Ken. That's why we're going to use it as the title of the show. I'm glad we got Geno. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Got you. And, one thing I think that Geno did really well today was taking care of the football. There were no turnovers. And in the span of since week 3 all the way up to this point on Sunday against the Commanders, he was turning the football over, fumbles, interceptions. And today that didn't happen. And that was, I think, the big get over the hump for Geno because he's just been lackluster with the football. Again, it's not all his fault, but on the times that there were incompletes, maybe it was intentional grounding, things of that nature, he didn't give the ball to the other team and it didn't hurt them. Intentional grounding does suck because you don't get a chance to kick the field goal and go up 12-9. Yeah,
that one was on Geno. That was bad.
Oh yeah, that was bad. But he didn't have a one that said, "Damn," he turned it over yet again. That is something that streak is over. He's on to back to Geno ball, a clean pocket. He can make the throw. If things aren't looking good, he can make something happen. Maybe he scrambles. There are a couple of penalties here and there that push them back, but you know what they did? A quick screen or a quick explosive play got them back in range of getting that first down because third down is still somewhat of a concern. But the pop pass to Ty Lockett on Sunday was really cool. It was 2nd and long, and they draw. I hadn't seen that play used to Tyler all season. And what did they do? Little pop pass to Ty Lockett. He goes for 16 yards. Now it's 2nd and manageable. Those are things that Shane was able to do. The offense executed. And Ty got a little yards after the catch. You usually don't see that with T-Lock. That's not really his style. He catches and gets down, but you saw pretty much everything working a lot smoother in the second half. Obviously, the first half, it was slow start, just wasn't good. It was concerning, but in the second half, everything really clicked. Offensive line did a really good job. The run game picked up. Zach Charbonnet got in there and got physical. Ken Walker was able to bounce a few good runs. So, all in all, I think Sherman even quote tweeted your tweet about how Geno went 9 of 10 on the final drive. And Sherm, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he basically stated when everything's working right, Geno can get it done. It's really that simple. When everything is flowing right, offensive line is doing their job, the run game is working, play action passing, Geno can definitely get it done. And I think a lot of fans saw that because there were, as you mentioned, Drew Lock was trending at halftime for bits and giggles here. What if Pete's like, all right, you know what? I checked Twitter. Damn, maybe, let's give Drew a shot. Are the Seahawks winning this game against the Commanders? I'm going to go on record and say I'm not 100% confident the Seahawks do win that game. I don't know if it gets done. There were a couple of throws, a couple of times where Geno was just dotting them up. The one throw to Ty Lockett over the linebacker's head, dropped it in the bucket, just a perfect touch pass. I don't know. Maybe Drew makes it, maybe not. But in that scenario, you don't bench a guy in Geno Lock who has to figure out a way and find his groove. And he was able to do that. And if you did bench him, what message is that sending to the team? That you're giving up on your starter? Not to mention, the team is 5-3. They're not 3-5. If the team was 3-5 and the struggles were still happening, okay, I hear you. But the fact that his teammates are saying, we got to be better, the coaching staff realizes that, yeah, Geno has his turnovers, but we as a unit have to be better. I think on display on Sunday, he showed why he can be that guy. Throws for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and again, no turnovers. That's what you want to see from Geno. I know they played against a pretty much not good Washington football team, but that's what you want to see Geno do. How many times have I said, okay, he struggles against a good defense, but against the defense and the Commanders, I want to see him light them up. And I know he didn't play great in the first quarter, second quarter, but when the game mattered the most, when they needed him, he comes up clutch. And we have a couple of plays, Mike, that alludes to how clutch he was. And one play, I'm going to go back. I'm sure you guys remember the game against the Cincinnati Bengals earlier in the season. It's the same route pretty much for Ty Lockett. I'm going to pull it up on the screen here because today Tyler Lockett wins. Same route here. Ty Lockett, he doesn't get any separation, as you can see at the top of the screen here. Ty Lockett's at the top of your screen. He runs he's acting as if he's going to do a fade, and it's a comeback. And Cam Britt reads it all the way and is able to knock it down. I love the play call, but it just wasn't executed. In other words, Ty Lockett didn't win his one-on-one. You go to Sunday against the Commanders. They do things a little different here, but it's the same play. The only difference is Geno's rolling to his right, but Ty Lockett, he wins his one-on-one. Again, Ty Lockett is at the top of your screen for our YouTube viewers. Ty Lockett at the top of your screen, runs the route, sells the fade. Oh, comeback, easy, money, touchdown. Seahawks have a touchdown lead. Obviously, the defense can't hold them, but you just see how everything worked well. The pocket's good. Well, pocket's not bad. They're rolling to the right. Ken Walker stays in there, makes the block. That's what you want to see. Great execution, great play. And again, Tyler Lockett wins his matchup. You have a touchdown. Seahawks take the lead there. So that is just an example of improvement and Geno not turning the football over. And it's good to see.
Yeah, and that's an example of the difference being other guys around Geno. The ball is in the same spot on both of those plays. The 3rd and 5 that gets knocked down in the Bengals game, and then the go-ahead touchdown today. Ball's in the same route, same ball. One's complete, one's not, because someone else is, of someone else's job. It's great. Great example. Like, even on both of DK's catches in the final drive, great illustrations of how when everyone's on it, it works. Like, we're showing it on YouTube right now. It was 3rd and 4. He's one-on-one with Benjamin St. Juice. At least I think that's how you say my brother's last name there, but
you got it.
It is? Okay, cool. He's one-on-one with him. He runs a slant. The protection's there. There's nobody like in Geno's face. All the guys keep their linemen from jumping up and blocking his pass down. And Geno throws it on the money, and they pick up a first down. They got 17 yards on that one. Easy. It's the same type of throw Geno could have made any of these other weeks. Guys go win their one-on-ones. Basically, the play that iced the game or put Jason Myers in position is a 27-yarder. The same thing. Geno has time in the pocket. He doesn't have to leave. He doesn't have to throw off his back foot. There's no pressure coming in his face like there was on the would-be touchdown to DK against the Ravens. And what does DK do? He gets open. All his linemen, all Geno's linemen win their reps. Jason Peters anchors up after someone looks like, I can't tell who that was, but tried to power rush him. He holds up, gives Geno just enough time to find his guy over the middle. Just a really bad play by the rookie safety on the Commanders, but whatever. That's not the point of that showing that clip. But all these plays, we could do this all day. We'll get to questions, obviously, because I know you guys want to hear what we think about the stuff you guys sent in. But these plays that we're showing, we're talking about, these are not new things. These are not Geno being a different guy. It is a lot of everyone else executing around. I like how, I don't know if this was like the thought process, but Chris, on the I think the play from the Bengals game that Tyler doesn't win on, I also think that Geno just throws that from the pocket, whereas the one you showed today, he rolls out. It shortens the throw a little bit, gives the DB less time to make a play on it. I don't know if that was a conscious effort by Shane Waldron. Maybe it was. I have to ask about that later in the week, but I do like that change. And if so, that's the coaching staff being better at something too. Like, there's all these things around. Everybody did their part today. We're going to show Geno some love. But, yeah, today was such a great illustration, from DK's wins to the line protecting Geno to guys catching the ball, winning on their routes, no back-breaking penalties on those final drives. We've seen that too, where it's a holding, ineligible man downfield, chop block, whatever, all this stuff. So that's how it needs to be. Geno's not going to throw for 369 yards every game, and guys aren't going to win every one-on-one in crunch time. But in general, that's how it needs to be. Clean around the board, from play call to protection to routes. When it's clean across the board, I think that can be the recipe for success against better teams because the Commanders stink, at least on defense. But they're going to play better defenses going forward. I don't know if the Rams stink statistically, but they don't seem very good. But Cowboys, Niners, Eagles, Steelers, these defenses they're going to put pressure on the Seahawks. And they have to deliver. The way to deliver is not just Geno be Superman. Sometimes it's, all right, everybody else do their part, and 7 will do the rest. So I thought that was the key to today. And that's got to be the key going forward, particularly if the defense is going to give up 140 yards across 2 drives in the fourth quarter. That was bad. I'm sure we got some questions about the defense, so we'll get to that. But yeah, that was a theme of today, man. Everybody did their part, and it allowed 7, Geno, that is, to do his as well and have a clean game.
Clean game it is. But yes, we have a lot of Twitter questions. Let's not waste any more time and get to them. Again, thank you guys for taking the time to ask questions. We appreciate all of the questions and all the love and support. This first one comes from the homie Shiv Ramdas. It's quite simple. Are the Seahawks good again?
Love it. What up, Shiv? They're kind of good. Good is relative. They have a lot of good players who can make good plays on any given snap. That's true. That showed up today. Like one snap, it's Draymond getting to the quarterback. One snap, it's Leonard Williams. Spoon had 3 plays on the ball today and a forced fumble. Jamal had a couple good open field tackles. Tyler gets busy. Geno gets busy. Ken gets busy. DK gets busy. Like they have a lot of good players, so I'm inclined to say that they are. But it does seem like we're still waiting. I feel like we've had this issue before, Chris, watching the Seahawks. We are waiting for the offense to play good at the same time that the defense plays good. It's for some reason it's just not meshing outside of perhaps just the Panthers game this year. It's just not meshing. Until that meshes, I'm a little iffy. I think the Seahawks are like an okay team. They're an okay team. Good. I gotta wait and see. Because good. I feel like the good teams put it together on both sides, play complementary football at least every other game. Maybe not every game, but at least once or twice in the first half of the season. Maybe back-to-back games, but we haven't seen that consistently yet. And until we do, I'm gonna hold off. Access that again after the Rams game next week, Shiv, and maybe I'll have a different answer for you depending on how that game goes.
This next one comes from Edmilson Vaz. What gives you more hope? The offense clicking or the defense will continue to improve and maybe match up well with the Niners? Or maybe even Philly in that regard too.
Yeah, actually, what are I'm gonna pull up the division standings. Both the Seahawks and the Niners are 6-3, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They are. Oh wow. Yeah, Seahawks 6-3. They would be the 5 seed right now with a trip to New Orleans, who somehow leads that division. Yuck. I would love to go back to New Orleans though. Anyway, what gives me more hope? I don't have a ton of hope, sadly. But if I had to choose, which I do because of the question, the defense, I do feel, I know this is a weird day to choose the defense, but generally speaking, when I watch the defense, I don't see a lot of dysfunction. I feel like other teams are making plays, but they're not like, I don't watch a lot of the players like, wow, what was that guy doing? You know what I mean? On the Seahawks part, like I don't watch that. Like even today, the 51-yard touchdown by Brian Robinson Jr. in the first quarter. I'm like, okay, well, Jamal misses the sack, but I'm not like watching the game thinking, damn, that was a bad play call or bad execution. It was just like, Jamal misses the sack, scrambles. Boye takes his eyes off Brian Robinson because now we're in scramble mode, and Boye is an outside linebacker. I don't expect him to be like plastering in the scramble situation. Boom, we got 51 yards. The other one, Brian Robinson, was 48 yards. Very similar situation. Draymond Jones is in coverage that time. Scramble situation. Again, I don't expect Draymond to be plastering in a scramble situation. That's just kind of it's not his bag. Brother's like 285 pounds. That's just not, it's not what he do. So when I watch the defense, even though the other team makes plays, I'm not like seeing dysfunction, not seeing bad process. I'm seeing like some good plays being made. I need to see the all 22 of the touchdown Bobby gave up. I don't know if the dude pushed them or what, because that was a lot of separation. Even the game tying joint from how do you say my name? Last name is Brown, Diami or number 2.
I know
That
you're
is
talking about.
that's a great ball. That's a great catch. Like I'm not seeing dysfunction. I'm not seeing like we've seen Chris from years past where the defense is like, dog, they can't tackle, they can't run fit, they can't blown coverages, guys getting cooked, Tedrick playing the ball bad, Trey Flowers getting beat, whatever. We're not seeing stuff like that. I just see the other team making plays. I see good process. I see guys still playing together off of one another. Whereas on offense, we're not seeing the consistency in that. We are watching the offense thinking, dang, he didn't know he was going to run that way. Or, dang, man, another penalty. Or, dang, man, like that was a bad play call by Shane. I don't see a lot of bad process on the defense. So I have some hope. I would say I have more hope on that side of the ball.
This next one comes from Kimwell Santana. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being mediocre, 5 being good, and 10 being great, where do the Seahawks land on the scale, and what's it going to take to rise to the next level?
That's a good question. I got to see. Me and Chris talked about this before we recorded. I'll probably say like a 5. It's tricky because, like I said, I think they're an okay team. Like, for example, you guys know if you've been listening to the show for a little bit, I'm a point differential guy. Once we get into certain amount of games into the season, we're 9 games in, so point differential is pretty revealing. The Seahawks are a -1 point differential for the year. That's 16th in the league. I believe that number is updated with Sunday Night Football. It obviously doesn't include the Monday night game, but that's 16th in the league, so right about average. They're the best team with a negative point differential. Obviously, -1 is as thin as it gets. Right above them is the Bucks, and there's like right below them is the Packers, who are like 3 and 6. So like they're an okay team. Obviously, getting beat by 30, will tweak that number a little bit, but that's who you are. You're a team that got beat by 30. So I think the Seahawks are like an okay team. They're probably like a 5. To answer the back part of that question, how do you get over that? Beat the snot out of somebody. Because for the most part, the teams that you feel like are legit have done that. Whether it's a good team or a bad team, I don't care who it is. Just beat the snot out of somebody. I mean, that's honestly why I'm high. I'm probably higher on like a team like the Cowboys than probably most people, because I've seen the Cowboys just beat the snot out of people. They got knocked to the mat against the Niners earlier in the year, but they have several games this year where they have just blown the doors off of the other team. Blew the doors off of the Jets, blew the doors off of the Giants twice. I think now both of those teams stink, but they did what they were supposed to do. They handled business. I think the Cowboys also blew the doors off the Patriots. Like the Cowboys have smoked some teams, and I don't think that means their world's better than everybody, but I feel like they've put it together in a way that would, for example, make me feel better about them as a team. I think that has the same record as Seattle, but a much better point differential. I'm about to look up the Cowboys' point difference right now. I bet you it's through the roof. Yeah, the Cowboys have the 3rd best point differential. They're plus 104. That's insane. Yeah, they've been 100 points better than their opponents, and the Cowboys are 6-3. The Niners are 6-3. They're plus 109. Like, yeah, that's that. I need the Seahawks to start beating the snot out of somebody, good or bad. I don't care who it is, because Chris, we don't really do the whole it was the insert bad team when you smoke somebody. Smoking somebody is smoking somebody in the NFL, man. Anybody can lose. So that's what it's going to take to get over the hump. Go beat the snot out of somebody. Do it next week. Do it down in LA. Beat the snot out of Sean McVay for the first time ever. That'll help.
This next one comes from the homie who is in Germany. He said, I gotta get some sleep, so I'm asking this now. So shout out to Thorsten over there in Germany. Appreciate all the love, man. Why do most Seahawks games feel like this? Why can't they be good on offense and defense at the same time?
Okay. I'm going to try to say that we appreciate the love in German.
Uh-oh, drum roll. Here we go.
No drum roll, because now it's going to make me nervous. All right. So, Thorsten, we appreciate you. Schatze de Liebe.
That sounds okay.
Okay.
Look at Mike speaking German.
Yeah, oh, that probably sounds freaking awful. Anyway, go ahead, and you can have this one, Chris, because I just that's my contribution to this question.
This one is tough because being good on offense and defense at the same time, it doesn't always happen. And the Seahawks are great at doing that. They're great theater. I know the timeline is going crazy when it's 9-9. Hell, we talked about Drew Lock trending offensively because they were just so inconsistent. Then the second half, the offense flips the switch and the defense has just minute mistakes that allows touchdowns. I just think it comes down to the fact that it's very hard to have a complete game on both sides. And when you do it, usually you blow a team out. As Mike was mentioning earlier with point differential and how the Cowboys have blown teams out, I think you get that every now and then. And the Seahawks eventually just have to do that. Now, when they do it, Thorsten, to be honest, I predicted this would be the game that they blow the doors off of a team this season. And unfortunately, they didn't get it done. The Rams, another tough one. Could they? Sure, but it's a division game. The Rams always play the Seahawks tough and vice versa. So it's just really hard to have a complete game on both offense and defense and do a really great job. So I think it's just really hard in the NFL to do. And it's very rare that a team does it consistently.
Don't look at me. That's all I got, man. I spoke German on that question.
Appreciate all the love, Thorsten.
I probably botched that. So crazy.
This next one comes from Mookie Alexander. What up? Are the Jamal Adams blitzes losing steam?
Yeah, Jamal certainly has just whiffed on some very easy sacks this year. Whiffed on Daniel Jones in week 4. Whiffed today on Sam Howell, who's like the most sacked quarterback in the league. You got to make those plays. You got to make those. Jamal doesn't make any excuses for him or anything. So, credit to him, accountability, all that stuff. That stuff does matter. But yeah, that's pretty rough. I will say though, Jamal, I don't think the efficiency of the blitzes has taken that much of a dip although the raw production has. For instance, I looked it up earlier before we started recording. Jamal still has like a pressure rate of about 29%. I think a little over 29, smidge over it. For reference, Spoon's at like 33. And they've rushed the passer. Spoon's at like 18 snaps rushing the passer. Jamal's at like 17. And Spoon has 3 quarterback hits. Jamal has 1. I use them because they essentially play the same position in that regard. They're both playing like nickel blitzer guy. I like that. Nickel blitzer guy. That's a cool, they should call it that. Anyway. And Spoon, it feels like, has been far more impactful. Whereas Spoon has 3 quarterback hits and 2 sacks. However, one of Spoon's sacks and one of his quarterback hits is like on a trick play where he actually sacks Paris Campbell, who's a receiver. That was in week 4. So if we're talking about actually getting to the quarterback, someone like Spoon has in essence 1 sack. I know he had the one on Josh Dobbs that was negated, but he has 1 sack and 2 quarterback hits, which is not all that different from Jamal, who really should have 2 legit sacks. So I do think the raw number needs to be there. I think Jamal needs to make those plays. I don't think it's quote unquote losing steam, because I do think it's still something that the other team has to account for, which still has value. It's very similar to having like someone like DK draw bracket coverage to open up one-on-ones for his teammates. Like that has value whether DK gets the ball or not. Same thing with Jamal. When 33 creeps to the line, the center has to be like, yo, somebody block 33. And if the communication is not there, Jordan Brooks comes free and sacks the quarterback, right? Like that stuff still matters in that regard. So I do think the raw numbers not being there, that does stink. I do think that probably changes in the second half of the season because Jamal's still getting pressure at a good rate for the amount that he blitzes. And maybe we can do this on our standout plays maybe later in the week or something. Not this week, but at some point. I think Clint is doing a really good job getting guys free rushes at the quarterback. Like Boye's had a few. Jordan Brooks has had a few. Jamal's had a few. Spoon's had a few. Trey Brown, Trey's wasn't super clean. But either way, like he's getting guys. So I do trust Clint in that regard to scheme him up. I mean, he schemed Jamal free to quarterback today. Just missed. So I don't think the blitzes, quote unquote, are losing steam. I don't know how to quantify losing steam anyway. Obviously, the numbers aren't there. You guys don't need me to tell you that he hasn't actually sacked the quarterback. But I do think the effect is still good. Guys, remember, we're 2 weeks removed from a Jamal blitz saving the day. It's a Jamal blitz in a PBU that gets Julian Love the interception against Cleveland that leads to the game-winning drive. Like, it's not like Jamal blitzing has no effect. Again, he's pressuring the quarterback at same rate as someone like Spoon, whose impact has felt a lot bigger rushing the quarterback. So yeah, I think Jamal's fine. He just got to make the play, man. He was too free on that. But this is all setting up, Chris, for him to like have a big one in a big stage, like to sack Purdy or something on Thanksgiving or Dak on Thursday Night Football. That's all this is shaping up to, because you just know it's coming. He's too good at blitzing the quarterback to eventually not get one. For not to get multiple, honestly. I think he'll get multiple at some point.
This next one comes from Chris Leeper. I'm worried about the defense. They've struggled against any team with a competent / quarterback with a scheme. Any hope for them to improve?
Yeah, I do. I still think the process is pretty sound. I still think it's pretty sound. They're still getting to the quarterback, which is always good. When you're affecting the quarterback, good things are bound to happen when you do that. Like they were affecting Sam today. He was fortunate today with two, I'm not going to call them fluky plays to Brian Robinson because fluky is the wrong word. However, I do think they are not plays you are likely to. It's not like another team can say, wow, that worked. Let's do exactly that. You know what I mean? That's not going to. Who's the next opponent? The Rams. The Rams are not about to watch this film and say, let's have Matthew Stafford roll out and hope that the backer abandons his guy, flip it to him and get 50 yards. Like that's just not, it's not a beater that I think they can scheme up. Whereas in the Ravens game last week, I know the Commanders watched some of that and were like, we can put in X, Y, and Z to try to get these guys. You know, one of those Sam's quarterback run where he fumbles is probably a good example of a design that they probably borrowed from Baltimore. So that's why I'm not too worried about them going forward. Because like I mentioned earlier, I still think the process is good. You're probably not going to see Draymond Jones dropping in the coverage too often. Like, I don't know what type of guy Draymond is in that regard, but he probably needs to go up to Clint, on Monday, be like, yo, big dog, love you. Don't have me do that again. Like, that's just not it. Like, don't have me do that again. And Clint should be like, you're right. Tap yourself on the chest and be like, we ain't going to do that again. So I think Brian Robinson today had 119 yards receiving. And none of those, I think like 5 of those come on a screenplay. So I do think that when you have those kind of off-script fluky plays, again, I use the word fluky. Sorry about that, but you guys get the point. So yeah, that's why I'm not like overly concerned. And I know you're like, well, Mike, they also got cooked by the Ravens. I do think part of that was, particularly in the run game, that was them like trying to punch the ball out instead of tackling, just abandoning all their fundamentals. And you see that immediately change today. I think the 2 running backs for the Commanders combined for 51 yards on 12 carries. Well, there you go. Like they immediately came back to who they are, stopping the run. So I'm not too concerned. I think the process is still good. When I dive into the film, that'll probably confirm that. But yeah, I think the process is still fine. I'm not like, Chris, I'm not where you're at. Leaper, that is, not you, kid. Chris, I'm not as concerned as you are about the defense.
This next one is a follow-up, and it's from Zach Nixon. Identity. Do you think the Seahawks established one against the Commanders?
Yeah, I thought they were. I like their commitment to the run game. I thought the play calls, like they got both their guys in spots. I thought both their guys in spots. Yeah, that's kind of vague. I thought they got Ken and Zach in some good runs that they could feel comfortable with. I loved the blocking today. I thought today was not even like super schemy in the run game. At least watching it live, it felt more like just guys just bucking up. There was like, I want to say, I forget which drive it was. I believe it was in the second half where every run just went behind Damian Lewis, whether it was to the left or they pulled Damian to the right. It was like, hey, Ken, hey, Zach, follow number 68 and you will prosper. And it just worked out. I thought that was, they've done those runs before, but today it just really clicked. And you could tell, I mean, it wasn't just Damian leading those blocks. One of them, Chris, you saw on the TV copy, I briefly looked up and saw it. It was, I think it's a Zach Charbonnet run. There is just a huge lane for him to run through. I think Colby's on one side, D-Lou's on the other. I think Will Dissly is in there as well. And the whole thing just parts. that's identity right there. And I think Zach and Ken today combined for 25 carries, which is that's a good number. I think if you want to hit that number every week, that's pretty solid. They had a good yards per carry today too. I think it was like 4 and some change. It was decent, not outstanding, but pretty good. So yeah, I thought today was like really solid. I thought both teams actually, when they needed to, they ran the ball. The Commanders had that drive late in the fourth where they were just like, we're about to just hand it to Gibson and Robinson, and it worked all the way up and down the field. Like they found their identity a little later. Theirs is more throwing. But yeah, I think today was a start. It doesn't mean they just right back to who they are, but today was a start. They're going to look at this film and be like, yep, giving it to 9, giving it to 26. That eventually leads to everyone else getting involved too. The tight ends, not so much, but I mean, when you got Tyler, DK, and JSN, someone's going to have to sacrifice, and that's the tight ends, unfortunately. But yeah, I do think this was a great step in the right direction of finding that identity again, and just independent of the identity thing, just being more consistent with the runs. They ran for like 119 yards against the Browns, but it was on 13 carries, and then had 13 again against the Ravens, I think. That's not enough. I think this is a better number for them to aspire to get to each week. 25 should be like the loose goal, whether that's 12 for one guy, 13 for the other, however it's broken down. I think this is where they want to be in terms of balancing the run game with getting all their playmakers involved in the pass game as well.
This next one comes from David Reese. Hawks seem to commit crucial penalties that hurt them at crucial times. Is that a function of coaching?
I don't think so. I think some of it, particularly on defense, I know they didn't have any illegal hands to the face penalties today. I do think some of it is, as Pete Carroll has mentioned in some of his press conferences, that particular foul is a point of emphasis across the league. So you're seeing a bit more of them. I don't have the hard numbers on the league numbers, but it does feel like they're getting a lot of those. They didn't have any today, but I feel like that question is kind of spawned in part from some of those. Guys getting called for holding. I'd have to look back at all of the holding calls today. I do feel like when I looked at some of the holding calls in the past, a lot of them were guys breaking contain. Like Geno scrambles out and his lineman realizes it too late, doesn't let go. That's happened a few times. That happens on some of Ken Walker's runs, which is why it's good for him to stay with the blocking scheme, because if you bounce that outside and your guy is expecting you to go in, now he's holding. And it's not his fault. Now it's yours for bouncing it outside. But no, I don't think so. I don't think like they're a super undisciplined team. I think you're always going to get some flags. It's just impossible to avoid those. But generally speaking, yes, when your team is penalized a bunch, your coach is not doing his job. But I don't see a lot of like super undisciplined play, particularly today. I thought today was probably one of their cleaner games penalty wise. I don't have the penalty number in front of me of what like it compares to the rest of the weeks, but in general, I thought today was a lot cleaner, particularly in crunch time. Because we've seen a lot of games where those game-winning drives do not happen because there was an eligible guy downfield or offensive pass interference or DK does something. There was none of that today. I thought that stood out more than like any other penalties. It was the fact that in crunch time, nobody beat themselves. That was really key today too, on top of all the other stuff we've already talked about.
This next one comes from AJ Vargs. The game Sunday against the Commanders and the defense this season just hasn't been it on tackling. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think I feel like that question is coming again from the Ravens game, kind of skewing things, because that's probably about as bad as you're going to see a Seahawks team tackle as the Ravens game. That was just awful. That was terrible. And it was everybody. It was linemen, it was DBs, it was linebackers. It was just completely awful. I think that was an outlier. Today, it felt like it was a little bit closer to who they are. There was some missed tackles today, but nothing that I thought was super egregious. I do think today felt a lot more normal. I don't have the tackle number in front of me, but today definitely felt more normal than the Ravens game, because they miss tackles every week. I think I've mentioned this on the show. When I'm up there in the press box and I'm writing the game, I chart every play, and I put an MT with a line under it when somebody misses a tackle. today I did not have. I don't have my hard number in front of me, but today I did not have a ton more MTs than usual. I had Spoon missing one. I think I had JB miss Brooks. Had Brooks missing one.
Jamal,
I had Jamal missing one. That's not any more or less than every other week. Somebody misses one every week. It's the NFL. Guys get paid to make people miss. All right, that's just kind of how it goes. So yeah, I think today there was some misses, but off the field, like the first watch of the game live and a couple rewatches of some key drives, it really doesn't feel like today was a one where Pete Carroll on Monday is going to be like, yo, we're back to the fundamentals. I don't think so. The Ravens game, yes. Today, not as much.
This next one comes from Tony K. Boye Mafe turning out to be a stud. Mike, what has he said to you this season about his transition to the second year that has made things slow down?
It's a great question. I've talked to Boye about this a little bit, and I wrote a feature on him last week, as I promised you guys I would. Hopefully, you guys are working on your end of the bargain and finding Boye a nickname. Remember, that's our job as a Seahawks man-to-man family, is to find Boye Mafe a nickname. I don't have anything. I don't know how good I am at nicknames. I'm very hit and miss, but you guys keep working on it. There was a really bad one on the broadcast last week. We ain't gonna go with that. I forget who said that one, but it was awful. Anyway, Boye has mentioned a few things. I'll try to keep this short, but what he has first thing he's mentioned, generally speaking, is the same thing that all second-year guys mention, is the difference between coming into the NFL when you spent all offseason training for the combine versus coming into the NFL when you spent all offseason training like for your job. Because combine training is so different than all the stuff you do for a regular offseason as a veteran player. Like when you're a veteran player, you like hang out with your family for a little bit, you go get your private trainer and you do like conditioning, then you do like position drills for whatever position you have, obviously. And you kind of just do that all offseason. You watch film of yourself from the previous season, you watch other guys at your position, and then you rep that stuff. When you do combine training, you're like practicing your starts, like you're trying to get your form right for this 40. You're practicing for the bench. You're practicing for the 3-cone. All of this stuff you're never going to do. I mean, obviously you're going to run and be strong in the game, but you know what I mean? It's like practicing for the Olympics versus actually practicing your sport. So all first year or all second year guys cite that as something very important. The other thing they cite, which Boye has mentioned, is being able to watch themselves. That's huge for everybody, but Boye has cited that as well. Just being able to pop on the 2022 tape and just watch himself, watch what he did good, watch what he did wrong. He did that this offseason. That was helpful. He was able to watch himself with Coach BT Jordan, who's their pass rush specialist. He was able to watch himself with Clint Hurt. They were able to, another thing Boye has cited, is watch other guys who have similar games. Like play styles. I remember BT was telling me this week that this offseason with Boye, they watched a lot of Carl Lawson from the Jets. They watched a lot of Frank Clark. They watched a lot of Brian Burns, which is somebody that BT works with as well. Those guys they're similar stylistically to Boye, so they were like, hey, let's watch these guys, see how they win, see where we can incorporate how they win with what you do, and then build a pass rush plan, which gets into another thing Boye mentioned. Last year, he's kind of just rushing the passer. Chicken head cut off, all this stuff. Now he has a plan. Here's how I'm going to set up this tackle. Here's how I'm going to win this way. Then I can win this way. When I start winning this way, they're going to set up for that. And now I got a counter for that. Boom. It's all of that stuff really just comes to the behind the scenes, putting the work in. When guys say something generic as he put the work in, that's what it looked like for Boye. And finally, the other thing is the game was really slowed down for Boye. Because with rookies, they don't have a database usually to pull from. They can't be like, oh, last time I saw this formation with this personnel grouping in this situation, I got this. I got a screen, or I got a pulling guard, or I got a play action. They don't have that. Everything they're experiencing is usually for the first time. So it's hard to play fast as like you usually do in college because you don't have the database to pull from. That's what makes what Devin Witherspoon's doing out of this world because he's already doing that. And this is, he's 9 games in or something. But Spoon is rare, which is why he was a top 5 pick. Everyone else is just like doing stuff. They're just like playing and then learning. You know what I'm saying? Whereas now Boye is one of those guys who's like, oh, I know when this team does this in this situation and I'm here, this is what's happening. And he has a database to pull from now, which is huge. So I think all of those things, I said I would make it short. I lied. All of those things contribute to why Boye is playing so well. It's not just the talent. I think it's all that stuff that I mentioned. That's why he's on, Chris, 7 weeks in a row with a sack. That is bonkers. It's probably one of the more impressive streaks I've seen from a Seahawk in my 7 years covering the team.
This next one comes from Paul Martin. Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs will either be back next season. Would they take a pay cut to stay with the team?
No to the pay cut. Highly doubt that. I definitely believe that they'll be on the team because what happened when the Seahawks restructured both of their contracts this offseason essentially made them very hard to get rid of in 2024. Because you can get rid of them, but you don't save any money doing that because they pushed all the money. Basically, they pushed their cap hits into future years to save money on this year's cap, which makes them you can dump Quandre, but you don't save anything by doing it. So you just basically lose a good player that you need to replace without much room to replace him. So then they did the same with Jamal. I can look up their cap hits real quick. But also,
okay,
I'm not really going to totally reject the premise of the question, but I do think Quandre is playing fine. He's not getting a ton of chances to make plays on the ball. Teams are kind of avoiding him. Receivers aren't really going off that often against the Seahawks, really. If you guys notice, you're also not seeing a ton of seams and posts coming Quandre's way. Yeah, they get a little cap savings by cutting Quandre, but they're eating a good dead money here. Looks like, ooh, man, yeah, it's like 10 mil in dead money, which is kind of a lot. On a safety, you can do like a post June 1 cut, but I mean, we'll get into some of that in the offseason. But the short answer is I believe they'll both be on the team next year. Yeah, and then Jamal next year. Yeah, see, Jamal's dead money hit is 20 million next year with the cap savings of only 6 mil. So Jamal's gonna be on the team. I believe Quandre will too, barring something catastrophic. I also think they're both playing well right now. I think both of them are impacting the game. Quandre stuff is kind of showing up on film more than it is in the broadcast copy, which makes sense. But yeah, I do think both of them will be on the team next year.
This next one comes from Jeff Rocket. Jeffy Rocket, excuse me. Is there any hope for the offensive line?
Yeah, and I think, Chris, we're not really a fan of rotating the linemen. We're not really a fan of rotating anybody.
I don't like them rotating Trey and Devin. It's like, bro, just stick with one of them. I get that you have personnel groupings, but for the cornerback specifically, just leave that alone. But I digress. Continue, Mike.
Now I'm with you on that. It is tricky because their best personnel grouping is probably Trey Brown, Reek, Spoon at nickel, Quandre and Jamal. That's fine as a fine lineup. But I also understand putting Jamal at nickel sometimes because it works. He's close to the line of scrimmage. He can affect the game. I also understand wanting to get reps for Spoon on the outside when the matchup presents itself because Spoon's really good, as an outside corner. So I get it. I get why Clint's doing it. But the upfront thing, I'm not not a huge fan of. But yeah, actually, I do think there's hope. Today was really good in the clutch. I don't think, at least according to True Media, I'm pretty sure they don't have any pressures listed for Geno Smith on the final 2 drives. That should say it all right there. When it was time, they were able to hold up. Now, I understand that the Commanders don't really have any pass rushers left, but still, they still did their job as they were supposed to. So I think that's pretty encouraging. Next week will be a better test. Access again next week because I do think there is hope, especially if Abe Lucas comes back this week. Abe comes back this week, then that rotation thing between Stone and JP stops, and you just get your intended 5. Just give me 3 straight games of Charles, Delu, Evan, Phil, and Abe. Let's just give me 3 straight of those, and I feel like we get a better picture of what the offense could be. So, I actually do have hope in part because they played well largely most of the day. I think Geno had 48 dropbacks, 1 sack, and Abe coming back. Those 2 things make me feel, okay about the O-line. I do think there's hope there.
Is it odd that Zach Charbonnet hasn't scored a touchdown yet? And this one's from Eric Wall.
No, that's not odd. That's not odd at all. He doesn't touch the ball a lot. He also plays with Ken Walker, who is like really, really good. I don't know how many carries Zach has this year. It can't be many. But no, I don't think it's odd. I mean, the Seahawks in general had a stretch there where they didn't score a lot of touchdowns as a team. Shoot, how many touchdowns does DK have? What, 2?
Yeah,
One?
he doesn't have a lot.
Yeah, it can't be many. Let me see how many touchdowns DK has. DK has 2 touchdowns. That's it. Scored against the Giants, and he scored in week 1 against the Rams. It's 2 touchdowns in 8 games because he missed 1. You know, it's not. I'm not too worried about it. He's a rookie. You know, he's a rookie, essentially backup running back. I don't expect a backup running back to score a ton. So no, I'm not worried. I'm far more encouraged by how Zach looks when he runs the ball. With the exception of him just choosing violence over getting out of bounds in the final drive, he looks stupendous when he runs the ball. I think that's more important than, and he can pass block. Because you guys see he's just taking those reps from DJ Dallas. Zach, how he looks when he's on the field, way more important than when he gets in the end zone. I feel like whoever asked that has Zach in fantasy. I think that was a fantasy influence question, which is okay. I understand.
This next one comes from Michael Gartrell. Excuse me. Is Geno back? He came up huge in the 4th. Will that be the version of Geno we see going forward?
If everyone else does their part, I do think Geno's capable of that. He's shown it. I would like to see it now. I know I'm not like a super opponent adjusted person, but I would like to see it in one of these primetime joints against a really good team. That's where I would like to see it. I feel like we all can agree that specifically do it against the Niners.
Yeah.
Really. That's really, I mean, obviously the Cowboys, the Eagles, any of the other games would be great too, right? But not just Geno, by the way. I'm talking about everybody. Execute against the Niners. Because the Niners, ladies and gentlemen, are real. You want to talk about who's back? The Niners are back. Healthy 49ers, they are good. They are locked in. They are ready. Road, home, does not matter. So I do think this version of Geno, this will answer the question before we move on. This version of Geno we saw against the Commanders with the supporting cast doing his part. This version is much closer to the Geno I feel like we're going to see the rest of the year than the Geno we saw in the games against the AFC North. Because, guys, I don't know how much you guys are paying attention to the AFC North. Every team in that division plays different ball. That is man ball over there. It feels very similar to like when a team in the ACC or the Pac-12 goes and plays a team in the Big Ten in like a bowl game. And you see what happens when you got like some decent 4-star linemen going up against some farm boys from the Big Ten. That's the difference between some of these other divisions and the AFC North. The AFC North is playing. We're going to look back and see that the AFC North messed up a bunch of teams' offensive numbers because Cleveland's real, Baltimore's real, the Steelers have TJ Watt. Like, we're just going to see it's going to bear out by the end of the year. I'm very confident, particularly the AFC North's numbers versus some of these NFC teams who aren't used to playing those guys and had to go. I mean, look what happened to Detroit when they went and go play the Ravens. Same
like
thing happened to the Seahawks. Got their boots smoked because that's just, the Cardinals didn't score against the Browns, I don't think. You know what I mean? Like these other, the Niners went and got the business taken to them by the Bengals, right? Like this is not just the Seahawks. These AFC North teams are playing a different brand of ball over there. And I think the NFC team just ain't built that way, which is why we're getting some of these numbers. So, yeah, I think this version of Geno is going to be much closer to who we see going forward.
This next one comes from Cade Ashby. Miscommunication between quarterback, receivers, running backs this season. Is this typical? Or maybe I just haven't noticed it. Could this be maybe the fact that there's a bunch of young guys out there? Shane's offense? What's the issue?
That's a great question. Who asked this?
This is from Cade.
Cade? Great question, Cade, because I'm with you on that. I do think there's definitely more miscommunications this year than last year. At least it feels that way. I don't have like a full way to quantify miscommunications. But yeah, between like the botch snap between Geno and Olu, the interception that Geno threw to Tyler last week, some of these passes that have gone to JSN that have either been intercepted or nearly intercepted, the Bobo interception against Arizona, it does feel like there's a lot more of those. This question today from Cade is probably spawned from Noah Fant just stopping on his route, which my guess would be, I didn't ask Noah after the game, but my guess would be that Noah was supposed to keep running. And yeah, it does feel like there's been a little bit of that. I do think if I had to guess if there's any theme, which I don't think there is, but if I had to guess for the sake of answering the question, that it is due to some of the youth. Because you see, as I just rattled some of those off, there was a rookie involved in almost all of those. Geno or DK Bacon is right off against the Bengals. That would be a different one. But yeah, Olu, rookie. Even Tyler's the miscommunication, and Geno thinks Tyler's going to run a go against the Ravens last week. Jake Bobo, who lined up next to him, is supposed to tell him the signal. So that involves a rookie as well. JSN has been off with Geno a few times. Geno and Jake were not on the same page in the interception against the Cardinals. So, yeah, I think if I had to pinpoint something, I would say youth is probably it. And DK and Tyler haven't been practicing that much this year because they've been dealing with things, hamstring, hip, ribs, whatever. That probably plays a small role as well. But if I had to guess, I would say the youth is probably playing the biggest role in why we're seeing some of these. I know that doesn't explain what happened with Noah today, but I think if there was a pie chart, the youth would be the biggest slice of that pie to explain that.
Could be a couple of things with Noah. A, he didn't think the ball was coming to him. B, he wanted to sit in the zone, and if it was man, then he just read the coverage wrong. So that could be it, or it could be none of those things. So this next one comes from Bob. When Russell Wilson used to win close games, as the Seahawks did on Sunday against the Commanders, felt good. When the Seahawks do it now, it feels gross. Why is that?
I'm not gonna lie to you, Bob. That might be a you problem, man. I'm not gonna lie to you, because that win felt great. It felt great to watch. That was fun. That was a fun game. It came down to the wire. As soon as the Seahawks didn't get a touchdown when they were up 16-12, and they had to settle for a field goal, I was like, "Oh, this game about to be fun. This game is about to be fun." I was gonna text Chris that, but I felt really sick today. That's why I'm wearing sunglasses on the show, because the light would make me throw up. I almost threw up 3 times today. But yeah, I was gonna text Chris like, this game's about to be lit, because I just knew. I knew it was gonna be one of them Seahawks games. This was fun. This felt great. The Seahawks pulled it out late. Wasn't anything fluky. They didn't win on like a missed field goal by the other team. It was great. Yeah, Bob. I think you gotta do some soul searching there, because if you didn't have fun there, I don't know. You must have had money on the Seahawks to cover.
Oof. This next one comes from Chris Hamilton. Why has this Seahawks team been much better at getting yards after catch than previous team? Is it scheme, personnel? What gives?
Chris, we know the answer to this, don't we? He's wearing number 11. He's wearing number 11.
Hey,
Jackson
man.
Smith and Jigba.
We saw a lot of it. I think the first screen to Jackson was successful. Good blocking, first down. That's what you want to see. I mean, hell, they ran a screen to Will Dissly on Sunday, which I know Mike was like, yeah, Mike, this is why you don't give up on screens, because eventually when you execute it perfectly, it gets done. It got done.
So I think that there's probably a few reasons, but I really think I'm just going to give all the credit to Jackson. Even if he doesn't deserve it, this is the official Seahawks man-to-man stamp for Jackson Smith and Jigba. You have converted me, at least, to a believer in the Seahawks screen game only when they throw it to Jackson, pretty much. I know the Dissly one worked today, but I really feel like it's him. It's just him. He's been really good at it. I asked him about it after the game. I don't remember his answer. I didn't transcribe it because I was busy damn near throwing up. But I just think it's him. And we kind of figured that, Chris, this offseason. We talked about it. We were like, they're going to be better in yards after catch. They're going to be better in the screen game because they drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba. What do you know? They're better in both. Today, they average, I believe, 8.2 yards after catch per reception. By far their best of the season, and probably the best of the last 5 years. Just a great day for Yak. I know that Ken's big catch tilts that number a little bit, but even without Ken's catch, it's still high 6.7 or something like that yards after catch per reception. So I think I'm gonna give all the credit to number 11, man. He's he has said. I mean, he won a game on a screen a couple weeks ago. Like that dude is just he's just different with the screen game. You know how sometimes you can see in a movie where a character like the main character changes his life because he runs into somebody, whether it's like he goes to jail and converts to a new religion or talks to somebody and they convert them and change their life around. That's what JSN has done for the Seahawks screen game. He is the guy who has changed their life around. So all credit due to JSN.
So I don't know if you remember this name, Mike. I screwed it up. I thought it was Honey Boy because it was HWYN Boy. So I thought I was Honey Boy. It's not Honey Boy. It's Hawaiian Boy.
Oh,
Yeah. So I'm glad, he was like, correction there.
gotcha.
He wants to know, speaking of JSN, what happened? They were doing a great job of getting the ball in the first quarter. Then he vanished. Did they stop playing man or is there another reason?
No, I think that's just where the ball happened to go. I'd have to watch the all 22, but I just can't stress this enough. And I feel like, Chris, we've talked about this after several shows now. Everybody can't get the ball all the time. There's only one ball, and some people are going to have to make sacrifices. I think today it was the tight ends. Sometimes that's going to be Jackson. He just had 5 catches. I mean, DK had 10 targets or something like that, and Tyler had like 12 or something. Like this is kind of what it's going to have to be. Some games where look at it in the crunch time. Who was getting the ball? DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Like in a vacuum, no one will complain about that. Oh, you mean the Seahawks needed to go win the game and they threw the ball a bunch to Tyler and DK? You'd be like, well, yeah, duh. Like that sounds great. If you ask me, yeah, Tyler had 10 targets, DK had 12. That's 22 targets between the two of them. They should honestly get that every week. And then Jackson had 5. He should probably get 5 every week. That's 27 targets between the 3 of them. Ain't gonna be that many dropbacks. So I don't think anything schematically happened. I think sometimes they just draw up plays for DK. Sometimes they draw up plays for Tyler. Tyler got wide open on a few that really helped out. They also play more snaps than Jackson. So there's a ton of things that contribute. And then sometimes I'm sure when we see the film that there'll be a play that was clearly drawn up for Jackson and then they covered it. That happens. But I think today's distribution honestly is about how it should go every week. DK leads the team in targets, double figures. Tyler's right there with him, double figures. And then Jackson's right there behind it. I feel like that should probably be the distribution to some extent every week. And I almost guarantee you every time that's the case, they'll probably win the game. As long as there's not like a ton of turnovers.
This next one comes from Evan. So remember, Mike, earlier we talked about, or the question was regarding the offensive line rotating. Well, actually it was defense. And then we kind of talked about the offense rotating offensive linemen. So this one basically asks, in the rotation of offensive linemen, Jason Peters specifically, could that negatively impact Stone Forsythe's confidence in the long run?
No, I don't think so. I don't know Stone super well. So I'd have to really talk to him to figure out where his confidence is in that regard. But it's Jason Peters. Like it's like being in a backfield rotation with like Adrian Peterson or something. You know what I mean? Like you just kind of know why they're playing the other guy too. And it's not like they're benching Stone. Stone was the starter. Like, for what that's worth, they probably end up playing around the same number of snaps. But no, I don't think that would shake it. I mean, it's Jason Peters, man. Like he's what it looks like. The fact that he can still do this at that age and his voice meaning what it does in the locker room, from the little I know about Stone as a person, I doubt that would shake the confidence. If anything, it helps because then you get to learn from a dude like that. So that would be my guess. Again, I don't talk to Stone a ton. Backup tackle, big locker room. I'm busy. But, yeah, I highly doubt it just because it's Jason Peters. If there was some scrub off the street, then maybe. But because it's that dude, yeah, man, Stone know what time it is. He seems like a smart enough guy to recognize that.
This next one comes from Abraham Newelt. Do you think at any point this season Charbonnet will replace K9 as the lead back?
Nope. No, I do not. Ken is that dude. And they love Ken, love how he runs, love how he makes people miss, love what he can do in the open field. Ken had a 64-yard touchdown today on a check down. No. I think what we will see going forward, this feels like another fantasy question, by the way. As someone who has Ken Walker in the league, I really hope that they don't stop giving him the ball. But no, I think that Ken will be the lead guy unless he's hurt. And I don't see any reason why that should not be the case. Ken is about as explosive as it gets at the running back position. So, and I just talked to Chad Morton, the running backs coach, actually this week, not about that in particular, but he made it pretty clear. Like Ken's the starter, he's going to be the starter, and they're going to try to get Zach the ball too. But yeah, I don't see Zach leapfrogging Ken.
Man, it's been a long time since I read this name. Mr. Collins, Stephen Collins. He even admits it's been a long time since he's asked a question, but the season feels like an extended evaluation of Geno. What do you think he has to do to make Seattle opt in and forget about a rookie quarterback for next season?
I just checked my fantasy league too. I won in that league. I do think with Geno, yeah, this is an extended evaluation of him. That's an evaluation of him. That's a correct assessment. He has to keep delivering when it's time. It's really that simple. I mean, it's not that simple, but protect the football.
No, the answer is very simple. You're right.
Yeah, make the right reads and deliver when it's time. Pete Carroll, for what it's as much as he'll like evaluate the entire game of the quarterback every week, because if Geno stink it up for 58 minutes, 57 minutes, and 59 seconds, and he is lights out for that final two, and they win the game, Geno is going to get 7 more contract extensions because there's that much value on closing time. Like, remember, this is the coach who's like, can you win the game in the, I'm not going to do the whole speech, but he's that guy, and he does value that. Think of how happy Pete was after the Browns game. Geno didn't play well, and he was good for like a minute and a half, and you would think that Pete wanted to rename one of his kids Eugene, right? Like that's how happy he was after the game, because that's how much he values being able to function and operate and play winning football. That was his words. Geno played winning football. So as long as Geno plays winning football, he's got a home in the Seattle Seahawks organization. And to be fair, he should, because Geno from in the third 1 through 3 quarters is probably going to be fine. But the late game situation stuff is what makes you a franchise guy. And if this is what, 9 games, he's had 3 game-winning drives. I mean, that's about the percentage that you want. What is he? What, Chris? 3 and 1 in game-winning situations. Just he has 3 successes, and then what failed against the Bengals. I think that's it. Yeah. So you're 3 and 1 in that regard. As long as that number stays above 500, Geno's staying in Seattle.
This next one comes from the homie Ryan Turner.
What up, Ryan?
Halfway through the season, who deserves Pro Bowl consideration? And do the Seahawks have any All-Pro possibilities on the roster?
Yeah, this is a good question. Me and Chris were talking about this beforehand. If you guys notice, I did a second half prediction story that ran last week on The Athletic. And if you notice in that, I don't make any predictions about anybody making the Pro Bowl, because I went and looked at the numbers. And I don't think anybody has like a strong shot. I think me and Chris have kind of concluded there's a couple guys who have a possibility, but we don't really feel strong about anybody. I think what we say, Chris, Boye has a strong
Devin.
shot. Spoon. I would say Bobby or JB. They're both making a lot of tackles, making some splash plays as linebackers. That helps. After that, though, that's pretty much it. I think Boye, he could feel like a lock if you don't look around the rest of the NFC, but they only let 3 outside linebackers in. Last year, it was Zadarius Smith, Hassan Reddick, and Micah Parsons. Zadarius now plays for the Browns, so he's not in that equation, but then you got Danielle Hunter, who I think still leads the league in sacks, maybe. Even if he doesn't, between Micah, Reddick, and Danielle Hunter, those are probably going to be your 3 from the NFC, which deservedly so. Those guys are balling. Micah's unblockable. So is Hassan Reddick. So is Danielle Hunter. And so is Boye Mafe, apparently. But it can only be a few guys. So what you might see is Boye get voted in as an alternate, and then if the Eagles go back to the Super Bowl, Boye gets in the game. Spoon, I think, has a good shot. He makes a lot of plays on the ball. I think Spoon's like 4th in PBUs in the league, not among rookies, the league. So that's, and he's got an interception, touchdown, forced fumble, couple sacks. Like he's gonna have the numbers, I think, to be in the conversation. There's a lot of good corners in the NFC, so we'll see on that one. So, and I think Bobby or Jordan is probably gonna be in that mix. I would say the NFC has good linebackers, but it's not like a loaded spot as much as it is like loaded at pass rusher. So yeah, that's probably about it though, Chris. I don't think anybody on offense has a chance.
Nope.
And yeah, nobody up front. Definitely no tight ends. I feel like we said another guy in pre-production. Oh, DJ Dallas has a returner. That's right.
That's what you said.
His return numbers are kind of good. They're very good actually. So that would probably be it though. This team might have maybe Jason Myers too. So actually Michael Dixon. So yeah, no one, basically just no one on offense.
That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, so those would probably be the guys that are in consideration. That could change, but that's probably what I would predict is some special teams guys and maybe Spoon. That'll probably be it.
All right. This last one comes from Big Pete. How do you think the offensive line will handle this upcoming D-line when it comes to taking on the Rams?
Yeah, I'm curious about that. I think that if I had to do, we haven't done over and under in a while, Chris. I think I'm gonna do an over under of 2.5 sacks against the Rams next week and take the under. I think I like the under on that. I think one of those two is going to be on Geno, and then only one of them will be on the O-line. That would be my guess on how that's going to go. Because I do think they're playing okay. That's what made the Baltimore game so crazy. But like this version, this is the healthiest they've been. I do think they'll be okay, particularly if they get Abe back. Abe being back would be so huge. This group, I feel like, is their best group, which is why the Baltimore game was so disappointing. Some of them other iterations of the O-line, I can see why they didn't play well when you had Jake in there, and then you had Phil playing on a bad wheel, and like Anthony Bradford still trying to figure things out. This version right here, Charles, Delu, Evan, Phil, and then hopefully Abe, that's their best five. I could see them holding their own pretty well with Aaron Donald probably getting one because Aaron Donald is not of this world.
Well, I think your betting line is a great bet at 2.5. If I'm not mistaken, their first game against the Rams, they only had 2 sacks. So,
oh really?
Yeah. So based on that, I don't know how much Sean McVay blitzed in that game, but I don't imagine it'd be a lot because you have Aaron Donald, and you're going to try to keep as many guys covered. That's JSN, DK, Ty. You want to make sure they're not getting loose. So I don't think he's going to send much pressure. So yeah, I would take the under as well, especially if Abe is back.
And I just looked, Chris, you're right. They had 2 sacks in that game, and they both came in the fourth quarter after Charles and Abe had already gotten hurt.
Well, there you go. So that's,
and I didn't know that before I set that line too. So yeah, I feel good about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I would assume that the Rams. Can you look up to see how many times how many times they blitzed against the Seahawks that first game by any chance, real quick before we get out of here?
I got locked out of True Media, so I actually can't write this.
No worries.
I could, but it would take a while.
No worries. But I don't think they blitzed a lot the first game. Just going off of trying to run the game through my head, which was 10 weeks ago. But I just don't see McVay going crazy and trying to blitz Geno. I think he's going to be comfortable with sending 4, especially with Donald, who's going to attract 2. You just need one of your guys to get enough pressure, and maybe Geno makes a few mistakes here and there. But yeah, that's a good line, 2.5. I too would take the under. And yeah, man, that's been another long episode of Seahawks Man to Man. We want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen, watch, however you entertain, however you enjoyed this episode. But Mike, what you got?
I do have the number. So I
actually had
it I had it in a Google Doc. They blitzed 20% of the time.
Okay, that's
in week 1, but they got pressure on 44% of Geno's dropbacks, which is a very high number. So yes, they were able to get home without blitzing, and I imagine they do the same.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna be blitzing much. So that it'll be a fun one. It's always a good divisional battle between the Rams and Seahawks. So there's not gonna be any surprises for me. the Rams could sweep the Seahawks this season. That's just Sean McVay. He just, something about Sean. Maybe that's gonna be if the Seahawks lose that game. Maybe that'll be the title. Something about Sean.
It might be a little worse if they lose again, but yeah.
No, I hear you. But other than that, we will come back to you guys again, either late Friday, if not Saturday morning, with standout plays of the week. Hopefully, actually, no, hopefully the Seahawks, there's going to be a lot of positivity. There won't be, damn, we're just going to look at a bunch of third downs for the entire series, so the entire show. But Mike, is there anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Thank you for the love and support that you guys show every week, asking questions, tuning in, stopping us on the street, DMing us. I ran into somebody today at the beer garden who was like, "Yo, I watched the show. Shout out to you. I can't remember your name, my man, but we cheered like 10 a.m. this morning at the beer garden across the street from the stadium. So thank you guys for all that love and support every week. We thank you so much. And like Chris said, we will catch you guys later this week. Peace.